my name is Kate Kripke, and I am a maternal mental health specialist and parenting coach. And I am so excited to share a soulful conversation today.
I'm good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here.
Hey everybody, it's Chiarenza with Women's Successful Living and our next episode of Soulful Self-Care Conversations. I'm so excited today. I'm bringing another amazing female on the show who's all about helping high achieving women. And today's no different. I have my guest is Kate Kripke. She helps high achieving women break free from emotional overwhelm, guilt, and burnt out in motherhood. As a maternal mental health expert and transformative coach, she guides mothers in shifting old patterns, regulating their emotions, and reconnecting with their intuition so they can feel calm, confident, and in control while balancing both career and motherhood. Kate believes that thriving as a mother doesn't mean sacrificing personal success, and she equips women with the tools to build deep, lasting connections with their children while continuing to pursue their passions. And this is so dear and near to my heart, Kate, because this is why I started my business over 10 years ago. I was a mom and, I had two kids at home and thought I had to wear all those titles and be all the things and forget about who Pro was. So I'm so excited that we're talking on this subject today and that we're going to empower some women. So if they're listening to us, sit back, grab a cup of tea, because I'm not a coffee girl, but you can have your coffee too. And get a pen and paper and take some notes. If you're driving, honk to your neighbor next to you at the red light, tell them to put on our show and like and subscribe below, and then come back and watch us or listen to us and read all the show notes that will be available to you. So welcome to the show, Kate.
I am really happy to be with you here today, Pearl.
Yay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So everybody who's new to the show, I do not have questions. Many guests don't come on because I will not provide them questions. I want authentic conversations wherever they go. And so today's no different, except I always have one question.
Okay.
And so, Kate, we would love for you to introduce us to little Kate. Introduce us to that little girl. Take us back to when she was little. What was life like for her? What did she enjoy doing? And what did she want to be when she grew up? And how does it correlate to what you're doing today?
Wow. I love that last question. Last part of the question. So little Kate grew up in New York City, Brooklyn, New York. She was the first child of two very high achieving, ambitious, anxious parents. She was the forever good girl. And I think that actually came from feeling a lot of the emotions in the room with her, right? I think from a very young age, I felt a lot of big feeling, and learned pretty quickly that that big feeling was scary for my parents for different reasons for each of them. But of course, now I, as little Kate, like most little humans, couldn't really control my feeling to the depths of, I couldn't always be happy or always feel organized in my brain and body. But I did learn very quickly that that's how I was supposed to be. And I should say, Pearl, that this is not because my parents ever told me that. They loved me, right? I grew up with so much on paper. And I think I was terrified a lot of the time as a young child. I played competitive tennis as a kid. So I think, like many of your listeners, I developed a desire and quote unquote need to be perfect at a very young age to achieve. And I played competitive tennis. I practiced early in the morning, 5 days a week before school. And I wanted to be the best tennis player. I was growing up during the years of Martina Navratilova and Chris Evert, and they were sort of my heroes. And I wanted to be the best tennis player. Funny enough, when I was young, I could hit the ball harder than all the other girls where I was very strong but inconsistent, but I would win points simply because they couldn't hit the ball back. I would train with all the boys. And then as those girls started to develop strength, I started losing, right? Because I couldn't keep up with like the kind of more consistent game playing. And I think that's really interesting. I did not become a professional tennis player, clearly, but there you have it.
I love it. I love the visual you gave. Like I could hit it really well. Then they caught up to me. It's like, okay, now we're even, but oh, they got a little edge on me now. So I love that
Exactly right.
picture. Yeah, and I'm the oldest of three. So my parents were very they lacked education in regards to my dad got his GED in the Marines, and my mom I think she basically got out of high school as by the skin of her teeth, probably. And so they took off and got married in Tijuana, Mexico, from upstate New
Oh,
York.
uh-huh.
So they lacked communication. They, because of the communication lack, if they had disagreements, we would be walking on eggshells in the house often. And then
Yeah.
you come home, it's like, oh, everything's fine. You're like, oh, that's how it's done. I don't know what
Yeah.
happened, but okay. And
Yeah.
so because I was the oldest too, and I had to be the example and set the example, don't do anything wrong. I always felt like that was the person I had to be, the nurturer and taking care of, and that's where my people pleasing showed up because I was also the one that, oh, mom has gallbladder surgery, so you have to stay home with her from school. So all that stuff showed up early for me. I was lucky in the regards that God gave me the sense to know how or why he gave it to me that that's not what the life I wanted. So
Mm.
I started working at 12 years old, and my parents basically said, "Hey, if you want to go shopping at the mall with your friends, go get a job." So I couldn't work until I babysitting. Then once I could, I literally went to school, high school, came home, changed, and went to work. And I was a go-getter worker. I would if somebody call out, just call me, and so I think that's where I get a lot of my drive from because I want it to just like nothing's going to stop me. I'm going to do what I want to do. My people pleasing showed up. And so when I met my husband, my parents had moved to California. I was living on my own. I was like, oh, what the heck? I'll go to California. It sounds great, right? I hated it when I got there. I was packed to get ready to move back to Florida and went to a company picnic. And as I say, the rest is history. I met my husband there. But for me, little Pearl didn't know how to communicate. So when we would have, we didn't argue or anything, we had a disagreement, I just would withdraw. And Chuck would be like, well, what's wrong with you? Like, what's going on? Tell me. And I'm like, don't talk to me. I put that guard up. So finally, he's so smart. He decided, well, if you're not going to tell me, I'm just going to have the conversation for you. So he had start having my side of the conversation. I'd be like, wait a minute. That's not what I would have said. He goes, oh, you have a voice. So if he was sitting here right now, he'd be like, yeah, she has a voice. Once she learned it,
What a
it didn't go
gift.
away. So it was a
You know
great
what
gift.
I love about what you're saying, Pearl, is, and it's a really important point that you're making, is that driven woman, that high achiever, that perfectionist can come from many different backgrounds, right?
Yeah.
We respond to our childhood and our conditioning in many different ways. And one of the ways that I see many women responding is through pushing and doing and overachieving. And it's that drive. And again, we have very different backgrounds. We grew up in very different parts of the world. A country, we sort of had very different parents. And yet we move forward in our life as a response to that in very similar ways, right? That sort of
Yeah.
high achieving, ambitious, perfectionist mentality,
Yeah.
people
100.
pleaser. Me too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And so today, I mean, I love, we tried for 10 years to have kids and, we finally adopted our oldest one and then had our younger one through in vitro. So I kind of was like, okay, I've done all this stuff that I want to do. I've had a great, career in mortgages. So let me just set her on the shelf and go be a mom. And then that's why I love that we're talking about this today because that's where, back then, I mean, I'm 61. My oldest is now my youngest is 26 now. So, almost 30 years ago, I didn't know how to have or how to manage both. I remember when I was doing mortgages, I would bring Matthew, our oldest, sometimes to work with me because I was like, I got to get it done. So because Chuck would be out of town or something. So I love that we're talking about this now. And it's something that I really am like, I've got a huge growth now because I used to just work with the moms, but now it's like we needed both. We need the moms, we need the high achieving moms because we get in this career or this business world and we think, I can't have both, but you can have both. So talk to us about some of that you see.
Yeah, for sure. So there, it's so interesting. I think that there's two quite damaging rigid beliefs, and you just said them, and I think we can break them down a little bit. I can't have it all, and I can have it all. Or it's what maybe we can even move. I can't do it all, and I can do it all, right? Those are equally problematic. And what we know is that all rigid thinking comes from fear, right? So I can do it all is probably coming from the fear of not being enough, right? And I can't do it all is also probably coming from the fear of not being enough, right? So again, here's this one root, things can show up in many different ways. I think what we misunderstand is what is actually required to be, I'm going to come back to this important word, to be really successful professionally and to be really successful in mothering. And what does the word success even mean, right? Because we get so caught up in the achieving and the doing and the kind of external validation that we actually miss the point. And the point is, how do we want to feel? So, yeah, I mean, we can break that down if you want, but it's just
Yeah, I would love
setting
to
us
because
up.
yeah, so I totally agree with you. Like, how do we want to feel? Because many times, women don't want to feel like failures. They don't want to feel like they feel, I know I remember like I felt like I had to choose one or the other, that if I choose one, then I wasn't showing up for again, go back to people pleasing. If I choose this side, then I'm not taking care of this side. It's like, it's like the generational belief. Because like for me, my mom, my grandmother, they did everything for my granny did everything for you. Like you came home, everything was on the table, all set. My mom's generation was like, okay, I got to work and do, so figure that out. And then I'm in the generation goes, well, I'm supposed to be able to have it all, but how the heck do I do this? Like,
Well,
how do I do it? Right? So yeah, let's
sure.
break it down.
Well, maybe we can start with a pretty important question, which anyone who becomes a mother, whether they give birth themselves or not, is going to enter motherhood with, which is what does it mean to be a good mom?
Yeah, great question.
I don't even really love the words in that because we want to be good moms because we can't stand the idea of being bad moms. So even the word good has this fear to it. But maybe we can just, I think a lot of your listeners will think that way. So I don't
Right.
know. Let's brainstorm. Like for you, when you entered motherhood, what
Mm-hmm.
did you believe it meant? What was required to be a good mom?
So, for me, I would say when I think about when I entered motherhood, because I did this, it meant that I had to put whatever I was doing, whatever I wanted on the shelf. It
Self-sacrifice. Good moms
self-sacrifice,
sacrifice themselves.
right? Yep. Self-sacrifice. I had to do everything for them. I shouldn't expect them
Good.
to do anything for self.
Good moms do everything for their kids
Yep.
and
Yep.
self. Okay, we could
Yeah.
just even stop there. And we might sprinkle in, because I think this is what a lot of people, good moms make sure that their kids are happy.
Right. Yep.
Good moms prevent their kids from feeling any pain, right? That might be a
Right.
little more wordy than so good moms make sure their kids feel okay, feel good all the time, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That in and of itself is a setup for disaster. And it also is not actually based in any factual research based information.
Right.
And I want us to start there, Pearl, because if we have, I don't care how educated, how successful, how competent a woman is, if we start motherhood from that place, we're actually creating a really unfair dynamic for both the mom and her child.
Right. Yep.
So So it's really important maybe to break down a few myths, okay? And I'll just pick a few. There are so many, but I'll pick a
Yeah.
few out of my hat just based on where we're starting this conversation from. Number one is that um, mental health means that we are willing and able to feel all the emotions. Mental health does not mean that I'm feeling happy all the time.
Right.
If I'm mentally well, it means that my emotions are reflecting what's happening in my life, what's happening externally, right? I really want something and I can't have it. I'm going to feel disappointed, right?
Right.
I am facing a moment of uncertainty and unpredictability. I'm going to feel anxious. I feel
Right.
threatened in some way, whether that threat is real or perceived. I'm going to feel scared, which means I'm probably also going to feel angry. Because anger, there's a term we often use when we feel scared, we get scary. So underneath anger is a lot of fear. Okay, so those
Right.
all make sense. So if I'm telling myself that a good mom makes sure that my child is happy all the time, I'm actually missing the point of what my child's mental health and well being will look like.
True. Yeah.
So the other one, you already named this, but it's worth reminding good mom self sacrifice. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've seen the disastrous effects of this. We cannot mother our children well from an empty tank. We just can't.
100%. Yeah, we can't. No.
And, this idea, good mom self sacrifice, I mean, I think most of us, I could be wrong, but most of us intellectually know that that's not possible, right? But
Right.
our nervous systems don't believe. Our nervous systems don't believe it's safe for me to have wants and needs and to pursue them because something in my upbringing and my conditioning tells me that if I prioritize myself over someone else, something bad is going to happen, quote unquote. I don't know, that could look a million different ways for people.
Right. Right.
So, and that's part of why this idea, I love the kind of blurb on your podcast. This is why the idea of self-care, most high achieving women are going to roll their eyes
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
just one more thing to do. It's just
Right.
one more thing to do. But underneath any behavior are feelings and thoughts and beliefs. And if I believe that it's selfish for me to have wants and needs and to tend to them, then the effort that goes into doing that thing is going to be too much for me. It's not in alignment. It's out of congruence with what my beliefs are, right?
Right.
So, and then there's just this other one. My job is to prevent my children from feeling any pain. I have to make sure my child feels good all the time. Again, it's like if I really want to show up as the mom that's required, that's the say, we hear this term secure attachment. It's sort of a buzzword now in pop culture. Really, what that means is that I, as a mother who's creating a secure attachment, I actually am secure and steady enough in myself to be able to tolerate and make room for my child's messiness, to allow my child to feel all the big emotions, to have different opinions than me, to think in weird ways, to like, I am secure enough that I
Yeah.
can weather that storm. And
Right.
the storm, when we're raising little humans who are like skin bags of emotion, is a lot of emotion, right?
Yeah.
It's very uncomfortable.
Right.
And so, if my achievement brain has taught me that anytime I feel any emotional discomfort, I'm just going to fix it or problem solve it or manage it or control it, I am actually not showing up in the way that my child really needs so that they can feel their pain, which is inevitable. They're a little human, but not feel it alone.
Right. Yeah. There's, oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack there. You're like thinking, as you're talking, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that. Like in my, with the boys and it's so true. I mean, one of the things like I loved when my sister-in-law, and she's probably listening. So hello, Melissa.
Hi, Melissa.
I went to go visit her, and my brother one time, and my nephew Sean, I think was 3 or 4. I don't remember. And it was really cool because she's like, hey, you want to come upstairs? Sean's going to put his clothes away. I'm like, okay, sure. So I was like, and I looked, I think I must have gave her a look. She goes, um, unlike some of us that when we grew up, we don't have to have our mother put our clothes away. At 3 years old, he can start learning how to do that and be part of the team. I'm like, wow, I love that, like I'm like, so I said, so you're like a CEO mom. You're like running a business here. She goes, yeah, they're all part of the business, but he can learn. I was like, that was really cool that she was doing that. I'm like, me, I was like, oh, let me put all their clothes away. Let me do all that stuff. Right. And so as you were talking about that kind of came up in my head. And to watch him today being independent and the things he's doing, he's only in fifth grade. I think, don't get me wrong, Sean, fifth grade, I think. So it's, he's learning to communicate his feelings and they're holding that space for him. And so when you were saying this, like some of this stuff that you were saying, it hit me because when I finally started realizing I don't have to fix everything, I shouldn't fix everything for them. They have to feel, they have to have consequences. When I started realizing that, that's when I really started like stepping into things I want to do again. I'd put everything on a
Right.
shelf for so long. That's when I started, my own business. I started speaking and going, to different places. And so for me, the part of that, in doing that, I remember one time, I'll never forget this conversation. If Matt was here, I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember. I remember him looking at me one time about something and he's like, it's all your fault. And I was like, I sat there for a minute. The old me, the mom who believed that would have been like, yeah, it is all my fault. And then I looked at him and I go, well, actually, I'll tell you what, because he's like pointing the finger at me. I'm like, I'll tell you what, I'll take the thumb because there's probably things I could have said or done differently with you to make you not feel this way. I said that you could point a finger at me. That's okay. I might have some of that, but you got three fingers pointing back at you. So what are you going to own in that conversation? So when I started doing that, he's like, oh, you're not going to take everything anymore. Where the old me would have been like, yeah, it's all my fault. What can I do to fix it? And so um, they were late and they were in high school when that started happening. And so um, I just, the things you said there, it's so true because we think we have to be the fixer. We think we have to, but if we hold space to allow them, which my husband, I wish he was sitting here, he could hear this. He was so great at the opposite of it. He was so great about, you described it like holding space for them to be who they want to be and say what they need to say. And he would be so great at that. Like that's who I learned from because I didn't have that example. But he'd be like, okay, so tell me why do you feel that way? Like he would have the conversation. He wouldn't be like, this is how I feel. It even got to teaching them things like voting, right? So Matthew had a project at school and he had to do voting. I can't remember what he was in sixth grade. And he came home. He says, "I'm going to vote for so and so." And we're like, "Okay." He goes, "But mom and dad, who would you vote for?" I'm like, "We're not going to tell you. We want you to figure this out on your own. We'll answer questions for you, but we want you to figure this out on your own. We don't want to project our feelings onto you because this is a life lesson you need to learn as an adult, right?" And so he came back, told us who he was going to vote for. We're like, okay, great. Well, he goes to school and turns in the project assignment, and and he comes home that night. He goes, "I have to redo my project." I go, "Okay, I'm confused. Tell me, why do you feel you need to redo your project?" Well, the teacher had said they need to redo the project because there's too many people voting a certain way. And I was like, okay, well, we sat him down. So Chuck sat down with him and explained, how this doesn't happen in the real world. This is not anything. But to watch that Chuck navigate those different pieces to teach them, you have your feelings, tell us about your feelings, and how can we support you? How can we help you that?
Yeah.
It was really cool to watch Chuck do that, which I learned from him on many of those avenues.
A
But
couple things I just want to comment on because they're super important before we move on. What your
yeah,
sister-in-law's Melissa? What was her name?
Melissa,
Melissa.
Melissa.
So what Melissa needed to be willing to have happen when she did that, my 3-year-old can clean up, is she needed to allow her 3-year-old to feel discomfort.
Hmm.
When we do things for our children, it's because we can't tolerate the fact that they might feel discomfort.
Right.
Now, if I don't know how to sit with my own discomfort and trust that I'm okay at the same time, I will not be able to do that for my child.
Right.
So I do want to just recognize here that if you have people who are listening, this can this is easier said than done, right? We can
Correct.
say, okay, well, if my child is frustrated because I'm going to sit there and say, I'll sit here until you're done putting your toys in the basket and it's taking forever and they're frustrated. And the only way for me to tolerate that, have my nervous system trust that it's all okay, is if I can sit with my child's discomfort, because his discomfort will bring up discomfort in myself. And
Right.
a lot of people don't actually recognize that. Right.
No.
And so it
Yeah.
really does. I mean, that's what I sort of love about maternal child mental health work. It always has to start with us. We have to be willing to go first. I
Right.
have to be willing to learn how to feel a lot of emotional, unpleasant emotions and trust that I'm okay at the same time if I want to teach my child that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you pointed that out. I think, sitting in the discomfort is, it's hard because like you said, we don't want them to be uncomfortable. We don't want them to feel that way. When you just said that, it reminded me, so when our oldest son Matthew was going, he had some challenges. So he had been having a issue with feeling belonging. He was mixed race, and he was the only mixed race child in our family and his biological family. And so he was always a follower. And so he was following with this one group, and they were not, it basically was a cult. We weren't calling it a cult. He needed to figure that out on his own. We weren't going to point anything out. But the great thing was he was still going to therapy. Like he was still seeing his therapist once a week. Every other week was family. So I'd gone to a friend of mine. I'm like, I really don't know what to do, how to support him because I know that it's not a great group, but I'm really concerned. And my friend said, Pearl, all you can do is say to him, how can I support you in that thought? That's you. You're not going to change anything that he's doing. He's got to figure this out on his own. So, so we go to therapy, and my friend had told me they had lost 6 young men to this group in their church, and so we go to therapy, and we're sitting there, and he tells me. He gets this picture of Jesus and he's like, this is who you preach to. I'd never seen anything like it before in my life. I'm like, so I was just sitting there and my therapist, when this happened, she's like, her mouth dropped to the floor. I'm just sitting there and I'm like, okay, I hear what you're saying. It's just as calm as I'm saying this to you. I hear what you're saying. Okay, well, I don't believe that that's who I'm preaching to, but that's your thoughts. So, okay. And then he goes to tell me that he's worried because he was worried that he was going to be the one that was going to do, I won't get into details, but be the one that
Yeah.
basically was going to do harm to me
Yeah.
and my husband. And I just sat across Kate and I just reached over and I reached across the table and I said, Matt, how can I support you in that? If that's how God wants me to lead this world, then that's going to be his choice. It will sadden me, but how can I support you in that? And Kate, he just sat there and just looked at me. My therapist's mouth is on the floor, and he just looked at me. His stomach starts getting upset and everything. And he starts going, oh, I'm like, do we need to call a doctor? Because I didn't engage in it, right? I needed him to be like, I can't change his mind. So I literally was like, how can I support you in that? About 2 weeks later, he came forward and he said, I think I need to go for rehab. So he realized, I wasn't going to fix it. And trust me, my stomach, when he told me what, I was just like, I was a wreck when that all happened. But I was like, okay, how can I support you in that? And so he did. He went to rehab. He did really well, but unfortunately, he made some other mistakes after later on, a few years later. But like what you said, it's like I can't. I had to be comfortable. Are you okay?
So sorry.
Okay, we can pause a second. Hold on. Let me pause. Make sure I hit the right button. So anyway, so I knew that sitting there, I needed to just sit and like what you described. I needed to just sit in what he was feeling because I wasn't going to change his feelings. I mean, he had this whole group that was leading him to his feelings. And so I literally just sat there. And like I said, the therapist, her mouth was on the, she looks at me, she goes, where did that come from? I'm like, I don't know. All I know is I heard my friend say, just how can you support? And it just came out of my mouth. That's just as calm as I could be. And, so like what you said, and it was so uncomfortable. I mean, you said it too. I had to be, it was scary as heck what he was telling me, but I had to be comfortable in knowing that's what he was feeling and be comfortable with it, how uncomfortable and angry. I mean, I was like fuming inside, but I was like, okay, don't let it show. Just be calm, and then that's what I did. And so what you said is the uncertainty, that the whole, like, that feeling of, the anger, like that whole, like, his mental health was not right at that time, but to walk through that as a parent, I mean, I don't know if I could do it ever again the same way.
Well, I think what's really interesting about what you're saying is that you are, as you're talking about this, really differentiating between our thoughts and our feelings and our actions. And it is really worth highlighting here that one of the things that I see over and over and over in the work that I do with women is that this achievement oriented brain, we'll call it, right? The mindset, the brain that knows how to fix things, knows how to plan, knows how to problem solve, knows how to organize, knows how to get things done, knows how to do everything for everybody, right? That is actually a brain, all those skills that's so useful in everything except relationships. And motherhood, if we go back to how we started, what is a good mom? What is a successful motherhood? I know I feel the most successful as a mom. My daughter's now 16 and 19 when I feel connected, when I feel like I'm
Mhm.
in connection with them. And
Yeah.
a lot of the, if we, the thoughts I have, the beliefs I have about myself, I have to be perfect. I have to make sure everybody's okay all the time. I can't make mistakes. If I don't do it, nobody else will. It has to be me, right? My wants and needs don't matter. These are a lot of beliefs that very high achieving, capable women often bring into motherhood. If that's the belief I come into motherhood with, I come in the house and everyone's clothing is spread everywhere. And the thought's going to be, if I don't pick it up, no one else will. I'm going to
Right.
pick up everyone's stuff. The feeling is probably going to be one ultimately of annoyance and resentment or frustration or anger over time, right?
Right.
And then the action is going to be that I'm going to be tight and tense in my body and I might snap at my kids later. And then the result is I feel very disconnected with my children, right? And I think
Right.
one of the things that we have to identify is many of those old beliefs about ourselves that we bring into motherhood. That's like the operating system that we've been moving through life with. And successful mothering simply requires a different operating system. It requires an operating system, meaning a nervous system essentially, that trusts that it's okay to feel discomfort, that trusts that it's safe to slow down, that
Hmm.
trusts that it's safe to feel, that trusts that being in the moment and being present with that moment, even if it's filled with uncertainty, is not a problem. That's a very different operating system than we bring into our careers with a lot of the time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you because when I go back to my mortgage days, I was like, I was so like trying to take care of both, and I failed successfully, but I, like I didn't successfully do the motherhood part, but so it's like trying to figure those both out. I remember when I was pregnant with my younger one, and I'd come home from, we'd gone to upstate New York for a baby shower for our younger one, and I came home and the two loan officers that I processed for, one had quit, one got fired. And so my boss was like, okay, that's it. You're going to go. Him and my husband kept trying to get me to become a loan officer. And I was like, no, 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 no. And he's like, that's it. You're going to go be a loan officer now. And I was like 8 months pregnant. I'm like, dude, like I'm 8 months pregnant. He's like, no, 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 they're going to love you. And I did that. I did it successfully. However, I sacrificed connections with Nate because I went straight, had a baby, went straight back to work. And I wish I would have said, no, I'll wait till after the baby comes because I wanted that connection time. So when I look back, because when you said connection, I can tell you that that's the difference between the two of them. I had connection with Matthew because of the time I was able to spend at the beginning. I lacked connection with Nate. Well, we've built that, but back then when I look back, it's like that connection piece. It's so, so true. And that I like how you call it the operating system.
But I want to debunk a myth here.
Okay, let's debunk it.
Connection isn't about time. We don't have to spend lots of time with our children to form
Right.
connection.
Right.
And I say, and I know you know this, but I want to make sure that your listeners know this because I think that is one of the things that, by all, if someone wants to stay home with their young children, please, please, by all means. Like, I am not opposed to someone being a stay-at-home parent. I think that is incredible. But if someone wants to work and wants to pursue something outside of motherhood, spending a lot of time away from their child does not automatically mean they won't form a secure attachment. They won't build connection because really connection, secure attachment is built in teeny tiny moments. We
Right.
can actually use that moment of dropping our child at daycare or leaving the home when the child is screaming as a moment of connection. And many of us see those as moments of trauma and deep separation, and we're ruining our children and examples of a break in connection, but they're really not.
Yeah.
Again, the only way to really see that clearly is to understand that the feelings are never the problem. So the fact that your child is sad that you're leaving isn't a problem we have to fix. Does that make sense?
No, it's not. Oh, 100%. And what I just want to clarify, what I meant was like I had Nate and I went to work like 5 days later. It's
Uh-huh.
like I would have wished I would have stayed home at least a couple weeks
Sure,
with them.
sure,
No
sure.
matter what, I knew I was working. I was not, it's like there's so many things about me that, I could have stayed home, but it was my choice to work outside, and yeah. So, and it's funny when I look back, like the examples, I'm like, oh yeah, I let them do that. I let them cry. It's like I don't know where that came from, but I did let them cry. I did let them have those feelings and such. I'm looking at the time. We're having so much fun talking about this. So this we could go on and on for these examples. So it's so good. I'm like, we're almost done. We're almost out of time here. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such a great example. So I want to talk a little bit about more like I think we've seen a lot what you do with women. I think you walking me through examples have been really good live examples for the women that are listening and the moms that are watching or listening to us. And so what I want to ask you is why did you decide to do this? Like, what was there a pivot point in your life? You're like, I need to do something that drove you to do this kind of work. Because you're
Yeah.
really like, you're very like, I would just want to say, I mean, I know we've had conversation before you came on, but your examples, you're like, everything is so spot on. Like more people, and if you don't have a podcast, I hope you start a podcast on this.
I do have one. I do.
Oh, good. So we'll have to make sure to share that because I think it's really, really important that women and moms, and even dads hear what you're sharing because, there is like you said, there's no perfect parent. There's
Oh,
no perfect parent. If there is, please show me, come out so I can sit by your
it's
side.
actually not good for our children to be
No,
perfect.
exactly. Yeah. So share with us a little bit like what brought you to this. I know we introduced a little girl, but like what brought you to do this and how can people reach out to you as well?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So, the short of the long is that I thought I wanted to be a adolescent therapist. I was really interested in working with teens. And my first job out of grad school was to start a counseling program in an after school program in the Mission District in San Francisco. And those kids did not want to be in my office, but guess who did? Guess who wanted support, right? We had like a line out the door of moms. And what we found was that as those moms got what they needed to feel supported, they showed up differently at home and their children started doing better. Their teens started doing better. That really got me thinking. And of course, if we can get moms the support they need early when their kids aren't, before their kids are teenagers, we can really set whole families up for success in a different way. I then had my first daughter. I had very significant postpartum anxiety after my first daughter was born. Motherhood is the all-time equalizer. Postpartum mood and anxiety disorders don't choose who to show up for. I do actually think highly competent, successful, achievement-oriented women are at a very high risk because we like to fix and do our way through discomfort, and that is not going to work in motherhood. Um, and then I remember when I had my second daughter, I remember my first daughter was actually funnily enough, kind of a very even Steven child, right? Like she was not a hard child to parent when she was young, but I still had a whole ton of an anxiety. My second daughter was born. My my 2-year-old at the time came running into the nursery when I was putting my baby to sleep. And if any mothers are listening, they all are gonna, their heart will start to race in this moment because I was, she came in with this drawing and she wanted to show me and she was all excited. And I was so scared about the baby waking up because I had to have that baby to sleep because if she didn't sleep, everything else in my day would get out of whack, right? This is my achievement brain that I snapped at my 2-year-old and she got scared. I didn't hurt her, but my voice was scary to her. And it was that moment where I was like, I cannot project my own anxiety onto my daughters. I have to figure out what's happening here because if I keep trying to, if I keep, you made a comment earlier about Melissa, your sister-in-law. If I keep trying to run my home and be the CEO in mothering, I'm screwed. It's not going to work because that CEO brain does not know how to connect with young children when they're feeling big emotions. She knows how to fix and problem solve and plan and organize, but she does not know how to be still, to slow down. And that was really, I had had therapists, I'd taken medicine. I was a therapist for 20 years. I value good psychotherapy, but I really was realizing both for me and during the time that I was a therapist for these moms that traditional models of psychotherapy and treating depression don't really work in this realm that we need to work at in motherhood because anxiety is not a pathology in motherhood. It makes sense, full stop. If we are bringing that achievement focused brain and trying to plan and problem solve and don't know how to sit with uncomfortable emotions, we're going to be scared all the time. That's not pathology. That's like functioning. That's our nervous system saying this thing isn't safe. So that sort of had got me to where I am today. I don't practice traditional psychotherapy anymore. I have a 12-week coaching program that really takes women through the system that that helped me move through that with other moms. I also think none of us are supposed to mother alone. And so when we get in a community of other moms, we actually move so much faster. So there you have it.
I thank you for sharing that story. And you did a great picture. Like I could just see your 2-year-old running in there and be like,
Oh,
and then the feeling,
happy.
I could feel that feeling that you had coming overwhelmed and everything. And, and it's interesting you said that. I think Melissa needs to be somewhat like you because that was the other thing she said too. She said, I need to know when, like you're talking about having the quiet time and like she was really good with that from the start. And I think because she saw, and I love my brother, but she saw some of the behaviors my brother was taking from our parents into. So she knew she, in some ways had to be that space for herself and
Beautiful.
then also for my nephew as as my brother went through it. So I love that you're right. We have to create that space. That's why, for me, when I finally figured the shit out, I came home one day and I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm done doing for all you guys. I have to start doing for things for me. So from now on, like my family all looked at me like, who is that? And I'm like, okay, listen. And like I said, they were in high school and I finally got to this world. And I was like, okay, so when I come home or come downstairs or wherever I come from for my day, I'm going to say hi to you probably, but I'm going to go in my room. I'm either going to do, take a nap, read a book, whatever I'm doing somewhere in this house for 20 minutes or something on my own. So unless the house is on fire, please don't come get me. If you need to go to the hospital, Dad will take you and he'll call me. And they all looked at me like I had three heads. They're like, who is this? I'm like, this is, and the blessing to that, Kate, is that, the story, we lost our son, Matthew, and it'll be 4 years ago this July. And the blessing to that is 2 days before he passed, he literally said, he's in the garage with my husband. They have a business together. He's like, Mom, will you throw me a bottle of water? And when I chucked that bottle of water to him, he said, now have you figured out your shit, but you can throw something for a change. So that was like, it was almost like God saying, you got it together, keep it up because we're going to watch you from together, not
Yeah.
knowing 2 days later we're going to lose him. But that was like, I was like so glad that him and my son Nate both saw that. It was really important for me that they both know, hey, that women are not, we're not the fixer. We don't have to do everything. You guys can do this together and you can do it sloppy. It's okay. So yeah, it was a great thing. I'm so glad you shared your story and why you started. Tell everybody how they can reach you, Kate. And we'll put it in the show notes too.
No, that's great. My website's just my name, katekripke.com. I'm on Instagram at Kate Kripke. I love having conversations with people on the back end. So if any of your listeners come over, please come introduce yourself to me. And I do have a podcast, Motherhood Uncut. We will be launching season 8 sometime in the spring. There's so much to organize when you have a podcast, as you know. So we will get that next episode or next season up as soon as possible. Yeah.
I love it. So I just want to thank you again for coming and joining and having this. There was a great vulnerable conversation, and I was so glad that that you poked and prodded me a little bit. It was fun to do it and get some examples because it's really what, it's what people are probably going on the other side of the line listening. So if you are listening and or watching, make sure you like and subscribe below. If you want to connect, everything will be in the show notes. And if you feel like you need some, a clarity call, just go to wsliving.com and I'll give you a free say yes to your life call and connect you with Kate as well if you want
Oh,
some additional
say
connection.
yes to your life call. What an amazing opportunity
Yeah.
that is. That is awesome. Everyone go say yes to your life, girl. That sounds like
Thank
the
you, beautiful.
best next step. Thank you for having me. I
Thank
really
you so much.
conversation.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, you can't go yet because we got our cards. I'm
Oh
going to
yes.
shuffle the
Okay.
cards
Right,
because it's
right.
been funny, you guys. I keep pulling the same card for the people before we come on. So, all right. So I just shuffled them. You tell me when to stop and we'll get your card.
Stop. Stop.
All right. So your card says, oh, this is fun. What do I love?
Okay, it brings it this so the word that popped into mind was people. And I want to tell you what happened this weekend very quickly. I was traveling for work and I was on a flight from Houston back to Denver. And when you're on you've got a roller bag and like all the things are shut and you're like, where am I going to put my bag? And so I put my bag in the very front of the plane and I was sort of more towards the back. So it was a ways away from me. The plane lands and I get up and I see way down the aisle this man wave at me and he's like, I've got your bag. And he took the bag down and wheeled it out of the plane and he was waiting for me with my bag. And that teeny tiny gesture of generosity and kindness reminded me of why I love people. And I
Yeah.
think we're in a place in the world right now where there's so much fear and violence and animosity that it's really easy to see the things that we don't like about people. But I really do love people. So,
Yeah. That's a great
spontaneous
story.
answer. There you
Yeah,
go.
oh, I love that. I mean, I love that. I love things like that myself. I love when people do little things just to show up, It's like so important that, I'm
Small things, right? The
just little
small
tiny
things that
things.
matter most.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's so true. Like I got a friend of mine a couple of years ago, she was going through brain cancer and I said, what do you need? She goes, I need a cart. So I sent her, I went to Amazon, I'm like, okay, you got a cart coming. And like today, like about 2 weeks ago, she took a picture of the cart with her mop because she was mopping her floor. And she had her mop in the cart, pulling the cart around the house. I'm like, that was so cool. She was my cart from Pearl. I was like, just, little things like that. Like, what do you need? And just asking that. So I just want to thank you so much for coming on. I just want to remind our audience that we do come in this world. We have a little rough of a shell that we have to work through. But once you start polishing it, you can become stronger. You can become happier. You can become empowered, radiant, and original self as you go find your inner pearl to greatness. So I hope you had a great time with us today. Amazing information. Reach out to Kate because I know that she would love to talk to you as well. Have a great day. All right, to all my moms out there and my dads, I hope you enjoyed that episode. That was so much fun. I felt like I was like in the real world back when my kids were little, going, "Oh yeah, I could see that. Oh yeah, I remember that." It was so cool. I wrote down operating system. Change your operating system. If you're not happy with how you're parenting or you're not sure or you want some help, it's time to change your operating system. So create a new system where you can trust that's okay to feel discomfort. I love that. That's what Kate shared. It's about your feelings. So there's so many things that we got unpacked there today, but the most important I want you to know is you are doing the best that you can do. You're an amazing mom. You're an amazing dad. grandma, whoever it is that's raising our beautiful children, you're doing the best you can. Sometimes you just need a little help. And so reach out to Kate. And if you do need some help and you're not sure where you can find that balance or the harmony between both career and personal life, I'd love to help you with a Say Yes to Your Life call. Just go to wsliving.com, book a call, and let's help you say yes to your life. Have a great day.